So if we want to construct a reflected image, you're given an image to start with and your line of reflection. And you're basically showing how you could flip this figure over that line. So to start, pick a vertex, and you're going to construct a perpendicular line to the line of reflection. So if I'm starting at A and I'm going to this line, I'm basically going to be using the same construction as an altitude, which is a perpendicular line through a point not on the line. So if you know how to do that, this first part should be very familiar. So we put our compass at the vertex, and I'm going to swing an arc so that it hits the line twice. So as you can see, my arc went slightly off, so that's no big deal. You can just extend the line to still get those two intersection points, right? So I like to go over it one time when I see that there's a couple messy marks, just to make sure that I have the correct measurement. So now I have my two intersection points. Take your compass, start at one of the points, swing another arc. Without changing the distance, you're going to the other X. I'm just going to make around so I don't block you guys. So I'm just going to the other X that I created from the intersection point. And I'm going to use the same distance to swing the arc. I should have an intersection point here that I will connect A with to create my perpendicular line. So this is my perpendicular line through A that hits the line of reflection. So that's step one. Now, you want to make sure that your line of reflection, that the A is going to be the same distance. So I'm just going to set up. So here, I'm just repeating the same process so it matches your note. So we have the same starting point. This is why it's very important that you understand how to do the first couple of constructions that we did. So doing perpendicular lines, copying a line segment, all of those stuff at the beginning, because it's what really makes the later more complicated construction is a lot easier. If you can just remember, oh, this is the same thing as constructing an altitude. This is the same thing as copying a line segment, and just breaking it up into those little steps. So now I have my line, my perpendicular line. Your reflection, your point should always be the same distance over the reflection. So what you need to do is you need to make sure you're copying the distance. So this compass doesn't go short enough. So I'll grab my other one. So you want to make sure you're copying the distance from A to the line of reflection. So I'm copying. So when you copy, you just, come on. Nope, there we go. So you can see this little arc that I made right by the line of reflection. That's just the arc that I made when I had my compass centered at A to sort of swing to make sure I have the right distance. So without changing it, I'm now going to shift my compass over. So now your center should be at the point where it hit the line of reflection, and you're going to swing the same arc, right? So it ended up being at the intersection point, but I'll show you in a minute why you can't just use that, right? So basically, to copy a point over a line of reflection is two steps. Perpendicular line through it, copy the distance. What becomes a little tricky is because you then have to repeat this for all the vertices, right? And I'll show you what that looks like. So this is what we did for A prime. Doesn't look too complicated. I have one construction for a perpendicular line, another one for copying the line segment. You would then have to go through and do the same thing for B. So again, I did my arc, two intersecting arcs to get my perpendicular line, copy B. You can see here why you can't just use the intersection again for B prime, because the distance is actually farther away. And then you'd have to do it again for C prime. So again, one arc, two section points, right? And again, you can see how the intersection point of your original arcs and actual C prime don't match, right? And then your last step is the reason why this can look a little intimidating, right? Is because this is what it looks like all put together. This is why it's so important that when you're doing constructions, you're staying focused and making sure that you know what you're doing, right? Because this, if you just look at it, looks very confusing. But if you break it down, right, to construct A prime, you do a perpendicular line, copy a segment. B prime is the same thing, perpendicular line, copy the segment. C prime, perpendicular line, copy the segment. Right? What becomes confusing here is because there's all these different construction marks, which is why if you had any sort of highlighters or colored pencils where you could sort of just like mark, right? Like, oh, this arc that I'm dealing with here, like if I took like a pink colored pencil and I said, oh, for A, like I know this arc and these lines, we're dealing with A prime, right? And then I took, you know, a darker color and I said, oh, these guys were for B. So that way I don't get lost in all of the different construction marks that are going on, right? So overall, constructing a reflected image is probably very intimidating when you look just at the answers. But if you break it down, like I said, into the steps and just practice reflecting a point, it's not going to be that bad.